through evictions almost every week. New York State, it's very difficult to evict. A couple years ago, you could still buy a turnkey ranch single-family house for $150,000 in suburbs and turn around and rent it out for at least the 1% rule, if not greater. They're anticipating needing 25,000 to 30,000 new homes and apartments in central New York. We're seeing a lot of appreciation, especially over the last 4 or 5 years.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast, where we talk about the agent side of real estate investing. We'll be talking about the successes, the failures, and all in between. My name is Nico Garcia, local real estate agent and investor based out of Montgomery County, Maryland. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host,
Anna Bilek, Northern Virginia realtor and mostly out-of-state investor.
And we have another wonderful special guest. We have Connor Schwartz. Welcome to the show, brother.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we talk about the power of social media all the time on our podcast. And Connor and I connected through, I believe, Instagram or Facebook, one of those. And he and his team, Trifecta Wealth, up in Syracuse, New York, have been up to some really cool things. I really enjoyed following you guys and your journey online. So much so we ended up meeting, I want to say 2 years ago in person. And we wanted to have you come on because, you know, you're a fellow agent, fellow investor, and wanted to give you some space to talk about your journey. So you mind giving a quick introduction of you, where you're from, and what initially got you introduced into real estate?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Syracuse, New York, born and raised. Then I went to Utica University for construction management, so I got my bachelor's there. Studied entrepreneurship and business management as well. And when I was in college, I did some different experiences, had some different internships in the construction world, and quickly realized it's not what I wanted to do for the next 30, 40 years of my life. I wanted to figure out some ulterior ways to, make money or, live life, honestly. And then I found real estate, ended up finding a mentor and kind of just got into it when I was a junior in college. I moved back to Syracuse after school and have been doing it ever since for the last 4 or 5 years.
So how did you said you found real estate. Can you dive a little deeper into that? What do you mean you found it?
Right. So basically, I always knew growing up I wanted to be in construction of some sort. I loved the idea of taking something, making something out of nothing or transforming something. So I thought I wanted to be an architect or an engineer. Quickly figured out I wasn't that good at math, good enough to be able to do all that stuff, or maybe patient enough to be able to do it. So I was looking for ulterior ways to be involved in the construction world. And construction management popped up as a degree when I was searching. I was like, oh, that seems pretty cool. I visited Utica, and there's a professor, Dr. Double D, who older gentleman, super knowledgeable, from Texas originally, great guy. And clicked with him, hit it off, and decided to go to Utica, studied construction management for a few years there. 2020, so my sophomore year, I had an internship lined up with a construction company that was going to be building an Amazon distribution center here in Syracuse, New York, a 4 million square foot distribution center, which is crazy. And it'd be a really cool project to get a part of. Obviously, 2020 was COVID. And so when that hit, we got sent home during the semester and had a lot of free time because online learning really wasn't a thing yet. So I started looking at other ways, avenues of, how people are making money or investing, and started doing a lot of research, watching videos, social media, YouTube, reading different books and that kind of a thing. And I kind of caught the bug from that. And then I was lucky or fortunate enough that New York State deemed construction to be an essential business or essential, work. So I did get to do my internship. So it's kind of a combination of the two, where I got to do the internship. And the one thing I'll always remember from that job, amazing experience, got a ton of knowledge from it. I mean, it was one of the biggest projects, if not the biggest project going on at the time in Syracuse. So it was really cool to get to experience that as a 20-year-old, kid. But my foreman on that job, 60-year-old guy, great guy. He told me one of the first days I was there, wow, you're so lucky at 20 years old to get to be on this big of a job. This is the coolest project I've ever been on in my 40 years. And I was like, that's awesome. But if this is going to be the coolest project I get to be on and I'm 20, I don't know if I want to do this for the next 30, 40 years. So that kind of, I don't want to say it's a nail in the coffin, but that kind of really got me going on, okay, how can I get into real estate for myself or get into a different avenue of something that I'm going to enjoy? And that climax, so to speak, is not going to be when I'm 20 years old.
I love that, Connor. So that's pretty cool that you started in the construction field. You're learning the ins and outs of what's going into a warehouse. You're probably learning about the cost of materials and stuff like that, which is, I can really relate to that. I got into it working with my dad, who's a contractor. So that automatically gives you a leg up, and you were studying it in school, which is awesome. But you ended up kind of finding a mentor. You mind talking about like what that looked like and what made you initially attracted to finding somebody that's already doing it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, everything I was seeing was you need to find somebody that's doing something you want and that's successful at it and learn from them. So I would leverage social media. I used social media for a while, and I'd just follow these people and I'd DM them or reach out to them. If they had their email, other links in their bios, I'd reach out to them. I'd send emails out, letters out. I didn't care. I probably sent 50, maybe 100 different emails, letters to different people. I didn't get a single response from anybody, except for one guy out in Las Vegas. He was another guy around my age who had started flipping houses. He was just starting too. So it was just kind of nice to have somebody, but he was a little bit further along. But nobody answered me. So finally on ZipRecruiter, one of my buddies from college and I were both kind of interested in real estate. So on ZipRecruiter, we were looking at different potential real estate internships that were in central New York. There's really nothing, but there was this one advertisement from a company called TG Sticks Management that basically offered 10, 12 hours a week. We'll teach you everything you need to know or want to know about flipping houses, managing investment properties, renovating properties, kind of the whole shebang. And we were like, oh, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. It's 10, 15 hours a week, whatever it is. Well, we both reached out, my buddy Drew and I, and no answer. And Drew's originally he's out of state. He's from Vermont. So he didn't pursue it as much as I did initially, but it was right here in Syracuse. So I kept reaching out, email, call, texting, everything. No answer, no answer, no answer. So a couple months of that went by. I was coming home for Thanksgiving break to go back to my parents' house. And I was like, I got the office address. So I'm going to print out my resume, type a letter, say who I am, what I'm looking to do, and bring it. So I stopped by the office the day before Thanksgiving, so nobody was there, but I put it in the mail slot, and Thanksgiving morning, I got a text from Joe Stickle saying, hey, Connor, got your letter. You're very persistent. You can come in on Monday and we can talk. And almost 5 years later now, I've been with him every day since. So it's been pretty cool.
Love it. Love that story. There's a lot of nuggets because you can be persistent, especially if you want to be in this field, right? Learned a little bit about the construction, but you were like, hey, I want to learn what goes into actually buying and flipping houses. You wanted to connect with somebody that's already doing it. I think that's the fastest way to learn, right? I know Anna and I talk about this all the time, is you can read books, you can listen to podcasts, but if you're actually going and walking these properties, talking about, hey, what makes a good offer? What are you doing to make it good for a resale if you're flipping it? That's where you really start learning the most. So I'm so glad that you talked about that story and the persistency of if you're actually interested in it, it might take 2, 3, 4, 5 bites at the apple to actually get you there, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a saying that's basically like, you get 99 no's, but all you need is one yes. And, that one yes can change your life. For me, it really did. I definitely wouldn't be where I am right now if it wasn't for Joe. The opportunities he's provided me, and I've, taken advantage of in a way, and being able to tie into his network and what he's done over the last 20 years, growing that business and helping him scale as well. Us all scale as a team has been cool. And I was very fortunate to get the opportunities I have, and I wouldn't be in the spot I am now without Joe and his generosity in teaching me pretty much everything he knows.
Okay. Yeah. And then before we had the little hiccup, I was saying after we had the hiccup, I was saying to Nico, with a lot of these investors that are on social media or that people know are having success, they tend to be pickier because anybody can hear a podcast and read a book now and think they want to be an investor, and then they are flaky. So you continuing to reach out just proved to Joe, Joe's his name, right?
Yep.
That you were serious about it. You weren't just some kid that read a book and were like, oh, I want to try this.
Yeah. And exactly. And it's kind of funny because he doesn't have really any social media. He has like a Facebook page that he doesn't really go on. Didn't have a website, nothing. He basically operates all word of mouth, just kind of that way. But the ZipRecruiter ad that he had was actually like 5 years old. So he hadn't been on that ZipRecruiter app or online for years because it was for somebody else previously, but he just never took it down or he forgot to take it down. And so I was reaching out to ZipRecruiter, but he never was seeing it. I was calling his actual number and email. So I was getting through to him on that, but it took me bringing a letter and my resume into his office and talking to him, let him give me a shot or entice him to give me a shot, I guess.
So now I'm curious, did you ask him when you got my voicemails and my phone call, was he just like, yeah, whatever? What was...
I think he was at a phase in his life where, because he was really big in insurance for a while, and that's when he segued into real estate because he was making really good money. So I think he was at a point in his life where he was prepared to retire and ready to retire. And so he wasn't really looking to take on more work or people. But I think we just texting, calling, emailing him every week, and then finally dropping off a letter. He's like, I'll at least hear this kid out. And then I got my interview and I've been with him every day since. So.
Oh, you gave him a purpose. I mean, that's one thing. So we have a mentor on Night Casey who kind of started the ball rolling for me. And then I dragged Nico along with me, I think eventually. Like, you get financial independence, but then what? Like, then you're like, what do I do with the rest of my days? And it sounds like you gave him, like, he was like, oh, I like teaching someone else what I've been doing all this time that maybe he didn't realize it was something he was missing until you came along. So you did him a favor.
That's a cool way to look at it. That is really, yeah, I guess it could definitely be that. And yeah, he didn't have any agents. He had his license because he has property management companies, real estate license, but didn't have any agents on staff or anything. So the first thing he told me was, you're going to work for free. You know, that's what entrepreneurs do. And you're going to figure out how to make money. You're going to become an asset to the team. So he'd give me vacant apartments lease out and I'd get paid a fee for that kind of thing. And I like, okay, I'm going to get my real estate license. That's how I'm going to become an asset, because I see him doing, 10 flips at a time for himself and other clients. And it's like, okay, well, you're handing them off to other agents to list. What if we just keep it all in house? So got my license in 2021. And he goes, okay, great. You're not working with any of my clients until you own real estate yourself. So you know how it is and you can kind of walk the walk and talk the talk. So I ended up buying my first duplex in 2022. So got that going. And then he was like, all right, now you know what it's like to own your own property, go through the process of purchasing one, and then also manage, dealing with tenants, working with tenants, issues that pop up, what investors go through. And as a result, he's like, okay, now I'll let you work with, some of the investor clients on purchasing and selling their properties, because now you have experience in doing it yourself.
Connor, I love that story because I can totally resonate with it, right? So you got your license initially because you wanted to be an asset to the team. I got my license because my dad was also doing flips. He was like, Nico, just get your license so we can keep it all in house. So very similar to the way you started. But I wanted to chat about, first of all, give credit to Joe for saying, hey, I'm not going to let you be working with my clients unless you own real estate yourself. So talk to us about that first deal. You mentioned you bought a duplex. Did you buy it as a house hack? What type of financing did you do? And how did that look?
So the first duplex I got was one that one of Joe's clients was looking to sell. It's in the Eastwood neighborhoods of Syracuse, which is pretty when investors look at Syracuse, they really like Eastwood and they like Tipperary Hill as two of their more desirable locations. So I purchased a duplex. I was fortunate enough where I worked that internship that summer with the construction company. So I was able to save up a lot of money because there's nothing else going on. So I was working 70, 80 hours a week, double time and a half, and saved a lot of money. And the property at that time, values hadn't skyrocketed here. So I was able to get it for $118,000, 20% down, purchased it right way with doing an LLC and going all that route. But I was really fortunate enough where my dad could see the vision. And so he did co-sign for me on my first one because I was still a junior in college. But I had to work for it in regards to coming up with all the money, managing it all. And then once I was able to purchase, I was able to get him off of it. But it was a cool experience. So I did 20% down. I didn't house hack that one, but it cash flows like crazy. And it's a good cornerstone to my portfolio.
Love it. So that one was initially, you did a 20% down investor loan. For those who are listening, usually if you're buying it as an investment, you have to put 20% down. So talk to us about like how did it need work, the property, and then how did you initially find tenants? Did you lean on Joe to talk about like tenant qualification?
Yeah. So the upstairs unit was occupied. Awesome woman. She's still there today. So 4 or 5 years later. And so I inherited her. She'd been there for like 5 or 6 years and she's great. Her rent was on the lower side because she'd been there for so long. So over a couple of years, I increased it a little bit here and there, but she's a phenomenal tenant. She's kind of like the eyes in the sky, so to speak, for the property. She takes care of the yard and landscaping and everything like it's her own house. So she's phenomenal. She's been there. And then downstairs was vacant. So yes, I tied into Joe's expertise and I guess his knowledge on screening tenants, especially in New York State. We're a very tenant-friendly state. And so screening is imperative who you're going to be, renting to. You want to make sure you're renting to somebody that's going to take care of the property and all that. So he has his applications and application process. So before we even show properties, we require an application. We don't require application fees because we don't think that's fair, especially if the tenant hasn't seen the property to charge somebody. But we'll send the application out to them. They fill it out. And if things, check the box and they seem like they could be good on paper, so to speak, we'll set up a showing. And if we, have a good interaction with them in person, we'll then set up a meeting at our office, meet with them. Joe will usually meet with them. And sometimes we'll do house visits to their current houses or apartments, see how they're currently living. And if everything checks out, then we rent it out. So it was cool to be able to go through that process on my first property of having the vacant unit and then knowing, what that looks like on your own personal property.
Anna, can I ask two follow-on questions real quick? I'll let you ask because you brought up two good things. You talked about inherited tenants. That could be a deal breaker for a lot of people if it's just not a good tenant, or especially in a tenant-friendly state. Also, you mentioned rent increases over time, right? So you mentioned this person has been a great tenant; they're still there, but they were under market value. So how does that conversation go when you're looking to increase it? Do you do anything particular?
So basically, I've got a really good relationship with her. Like I said, she's a wonderful lady. So I didn't increase her. Her rent was $900 a month for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. And market rate's probably $1,450, $1,500.
Wow.
So decently below it. That being said, when I purchased the property, those numbers worked. I bought it for $118. It's now worth $230, $240. So the numbers for me personally work as an investor. However, I'm not able to keep the actual market value up if the rent is low. So the conversation, I've only increased her once so far. I increased her to $1,050 from the $900. And that's just because she's been such a phenomenal tenant and the numbers already work for me. I don't need to milk everything out of it. And so how the conversation went is I showed her, I printed out a bunch of comps. I came over and I said, hey, your rent's been $900 since you moved in here 5-6 years ago. The market rate is $1,450, $1,500 here. Similar apartments, even on the street, that are renting for that. And showed her that and is like, we're going to 90-day notice to increase to $1,050. If you need some more time, let me know. Like I have a really good relationship with her. So, but she was like, oh yeah, no worries. I figured you were going to do that sooner than now. It's kind of what she said. But it was a good conversation. It doesn't always go that way, but for this situation, it definitely. She was understanding and she was appreciative I wasn't increasing her up to the $1,450. Right. So, and I think that's key is being kind and understanding and putting yourself in other people's shoes, especially. And I didn't need it to increase to $1,450. I'm still making money off of it.
Yeah. And sometimes chasing the market rent isn't worth it when you have a good tenant that's
Right.
doing other things. Like if she's taking care of the grounds without you asking, that's something you don't have to pay for because she's willingly doing it. So some people don't think of it that way. They're just like, I want the market rent. And then they lose a perfectly good tenant. And
Right.
then what?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good peace of mind thing too. So
I love that strategy, Connor. I think it's called like the binder strategy or something like that. I've heard of it where you're showing actual market rents and you're showing them why you're increasing it, because a lot of landlords, unfortunately, they just say, hey, this is the price, either move out or move in. And Anna brings up the great point. Like if you have a good tenant that's paying and taking care of the property, that's an asset to you as a landlord. So all the landlords listening, right? You want to, gradually, if somebody's paying 900 and you just jump up to 1450, first of all, you have to make sure that your county even allows that, because here in Montgomery County, which is also tenant friendly in Maryland, you can't even do that. So you want to make sure you're doing things legally, but also you want to, you value this relationship with this tenant. It sounds like you want to make sure that they are comfortable. And she said, hey, I was expecting this, right? So you show her a few market rents and why you need to get there, because as a landlord, property taxes, insurance, things like that go up as well. So you want to, be fair to the tenants as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So I have a question to go back to the beginning when you were talking about screening tenants. There's something I didn't hear you say. I know you said they submit an application, but you don't charge the fees because you don't think that's fair. Do you do a background check, credit score? Like, do you get all that done?
Oh, yes and no. How we currently do our applications is we ask the tenants to send screenshots or their own credit report of their credit profile. And background checks, we ask them, have you ever been a felon, that sort of a thing. We'll do background checks on tenants if we are working for a client that wants them done, like an investor client that owns the property. If we're managing it or partners with them, we'll ask them if they want it done, and we'll absolutely do it. Same with us pulling the credit report. However, in New York State, really can't. There's a lot of fair housing laws, obviously, which there are across the country, but New York State, you can't not rent to somebody because they're a former felon or they've been evicted before or anything like that. So you really can only go based off of credit score. Fortunately, we have a lot of reach in regards to having tenants and other investors. So we always have a pool of tenants to choose from, but that are lined up for the properties. So it's relatively easy for us to make a good fit. But we're just very, very careful in regards to the actual application process, because realistically, the only thing you can kind of go off of is the credit score.
Yeah. Okay. And I asked that question because being here in Northern Virginia, and I think Miko's the same way because we're so close to the city, it's kind of standard practice to do like background checks, expect certain credit scores, X number of times of like income for the rent. But I have properties in areas that are not like DC, very much not in the city, and their mindset's completely different. We have someone that's like, it feels good. They seem like good people. And then I run their credit background check and I'm like,
yeah. So I'd say it's a combination of the two. It really is. It's what does it look like on paper? And then also meeting them and getting a good feeling for it.
Yep.
Because one of the best pieces of advice Joe's ever given me, follow your gut, go with your gut feeling, whether you're buying a property, selling it, tenant, whatever it is. You don't have a good gut feeling about it, don't do it. If you do have a good gut feeling about it, then do it. So, I mean, one of my best tenants moved out. He had awful credit and he was employed under the table. His brother owned a roofing company and he worked for the roofing company, but he was like, oh, I'll pay you 6 months at a time cash. And so he was my best tenant for like 3 years. A great guy, took care of the property, outstanding guy. And it was in a unit that we were struggling renting. So, and I was like, I'll give this guy a chance. And he ended up being a great guy 3 years. And he just went and rented a single family house out in the suburbs a couple months ago. And he's doing well. So all he wanted was a shot and a chance because he knew he was in a tough spot. So I think we kind of mainly go off of obviously a combination of the two, but sometimes it works out in the other way.
okay. Is there anything that you put in place for those tenants that maybe have a questionable background, but you feel good about? Like, do you, for your rentals or for your clients, put like additional deposits in place? Like, how do you safeguard, or do you just cross your fingers and hope?
So the way we will safeguard is for those positions or situations, we'll do month-to-month leases, or we'll do, like, he was willing to pay 6 months. So we'll do a 6-month lease and then it automatically will go to month-to-month off of that. But if he wants to pay another 6 months, then we'll do a 6-month lease. And the reason we do that is New York State, it's very difficult to evict. So if tenant's been there for longer than or less than a year, you can 30-day notice them. But if they sign a year lease, sometimes you're kind of stuck with them even if they're not paying. So a lot of the time for those situations where it's like, okay, this could kind of go either way, we'll do month to month because it's a lot easier to get them out if we had to, if things went south.
It's a pro tip right there. I just learned something. This is why I like these conversations that go off the rails, because I have personal experiences that I'm like, so teach me something that I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have a decent amount of month-to-month leases right now because of that. So I've got some year leases and then some month-to-month, and I think having a combination of the two is good.
I think that's a pro
Okay.
tip for those who are in tenant-friendly states like myself to, and first of all, understand the laws, and Anna, understand the laws of, if you have a tenant that, you want to get out, understand the process of the eviction. But also, like a pro tip, like Connor says, hey, if it's actually a year lease, they might have some tenant rights and it'll be even harder to get them out when the time comes. So definitely that's a great pro tip. I wanted to talk more. You talk about your first deal, right? And how you got your foot in the door. I'm sure you learned a ton just off that first deal. How did the next couple of deals look like, and what's your portfolio looking now?
Yeah. So after I got the first one, Joe's like, okay, what's next? When are you doing your next one? So basically how we operate as a team or, investment wise is we'll do a couple deals, say ourselves, we'll buy a couple properties individually, but your money really goes further and can spread out farther when you partner with other people, use other people's money. So I was still a senior in college, so I didn't have 2 years of employment history and I didn't have too much money after I just bought the duplex. So my way into the next two properties was partnering with one of our clients, who's an engineer, another great guy, and he has that W-2 work history, and he has other investment properties, and he was looking to grow his portfolio as well. So I was able, the next two we got was a duplex that I was 50-50 on, and then a 3-unit that I am 33% on with James and my investor partner, and then Joe on the 3-unit. So that one, the benefit for James was that I am going to basically be managing and being the boots on the ground person and contributing financially too. We kind of would develop roles in that respect. So that's how I kind of scaled to 3 properties, was by partnering either 50-50 or, 3 ways on the duplex and the 3-unit, which we still own today and has been a pretty cool deal. The 2-unit we bought to renovate, and we did the BRRRR strategy. So we picked that one up for $70,000. We were planning to put $25,000-$30,000 into it. We ended up putting like $50,000-$60,000 into it, but we did refinance it, appraised for $200,000, I believe. And we pulled out pretty much everything that we put into it. And we get $1,300 downstairs, Section 8 tenant, and upstairs we get $1,200 Section 8 tenant as well for that one. So $2,500 total for that property. Pretty good cash flow.
I love the story of partnerships, right? You get to a point, especially because you're still in school, right? You don't have that W-2 history. And you're like, okay, how do I get the next deal? I love that I got my first one. I'm 0 to 1 is always the hardest, but you're like, how do I get to 2 to 3 properties? And you're like, okay, maybe I partner with somebody where they don't really have the time. And you're like, I have all the time, but I don't have the money. So you combine forces. You're like, okay, let's go. I'll help manage this. I've heard of partnerships where they don't put any money in. They just do all the sweat equity. And they're like, hey, I'm going to be vetting the tenants. I'm going to be managing the properties. If we get a toilet call at midnight, I'll be the one that's figuring out what to do rather than, so other people like that, right? They're like, okay, I don't have to manage it. I have spoken for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the second duplex, so the one I partnered with James on first, I forgot this piece. So I had to come up with $15,000 to put down. And I had like $7,000 to my name at that point. So 2 of my best friends in college, I was like, hey, you guys each have $5,000. Do you want to partner with me on this? They did. And so we partnered, and I paid them back after we refinanced. I gave them all a return on their money and bought them out of my half of the deal. So I did forget about that briefly, but that was cool. And then my one buddy still invests with me. I just keep rolling his investment into the next deal, the next flip, which has been pretty cool for both of us.
Okay. So were those 2 buddies like private money lenders, or did they actually get an equity share that you bought out?
They were just like private money lenders. So I had an agreement drawn up with them, and you're giving me $5,000. I'm giving you X amount back in 6 months once we refinance thing.
You got creative. I love it.
So
I wanted Joe. I want to meet Joe.
Right? I know. He's a good guy.
Connor, we talked about, our show is called the Agent to Investor podcast, right? That's how we connected and how you're growing your investor pool, being an investor friendly agent. What are some characteristics? Any agent that's listening is going to be like, hey, I'm investor friendly, right? And they just want business. But what are some attributes that you, alongside Anna and I, what would you say that differentiates you from other agents?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of agents out there, obviously. investor friendly agent, in my opinion, is someone that is walking the walk. If they don't currently own investment properties, they have at some point in their life, because I really feel like you don't understand it unless you're going through it or unless you have done it previously. Because obviously the investor client compared to the residential client are two completely different entities. An investor's running it oftentimes strictly as a business. There's no emotions involved. They're used to spending the money or making the money. Whereas the residential client, oftentimes it's the biggest purchase or investment of their life, so to speak. So both, you have to kind of have two different caps on whatever client you're working with. In regards to the investment side, I think it's very helpful when whatever agent you're working with owns investment properties, has those connections. Like for us, we have a full blown management team, contractors on staff, administration, leasing agents, real estate agents. So we've kind of got everything and we're able to incorporate it. We go through evictions almost every week. I mean, we manage over almost around 100 properties. It's gone down a little bit because we've been selling off some stuff with the hot market, but around 100 properties, 200 something units is what we currently manage. So we've got eviction attorneys that we work with a lot. We've got all the kind of connections. So, and that's why we advertise ourselves as the one-stop shop, because we really do it all. But I think having an agent-friendly investor would be somebody that if they don't have those people on staff, at least they have those connections and they have those experiences.
And Anna and I talk about this all the time, and I agree with everything you said, being a one-stop shop and things like that. I really value people that are actively going and trying to find deals off market. That's kind of how we got introduced. You said, hey, I got a wholesaler, or I'm actively trying to find deals for my investor clients, right? So I know a lot of your clients are out of state, right? And they love the idea of your market because it's a cash flow market. Whereas, us, where, it's really hard to cash flow in our market. So you might talk a little bit about that and why that could be beneficial.
Yeah. So I think a lot of agents and a lot of people assume that wholesaling isn't allowed in New York State. And while, wholesaling gets a bad rap, there are a lot of wholesalers out there. A lot of wholesalers, because they know we have investor clients, still bring deals to us and say, hey, we've got this property here. Here's the return, or here's what it looks like. Do you have anybody that's interested? And that's how Nico and I initially got, things going, because one of those guys brought us a deal in North Syracuse, and it was a pretty good little ranch, and it was something that we looked at previously. And, that happens all the time. I think I'd probably have a wholesaler reach out to me almost every day with a different lead or deal. So, to be completely honest, from an investor standpoint, we haven't really looked at stuff on the market in several years because the market's just so hot here in Syracuse. If you look at it, it's gone in a couple of days, especially if it's priced below $300,000. It doesn't matter if it's a single family, duplex, where location wise doesn't really matter. It's all kind of just gone. So we've done a lot of, deal sourcing through wholesalers, finding off market deals for our buyer clients and our investors. The residential side of things is a little bit different, but yeah, I can't honestly remember the last time I looked at an investment deal on the market.
Yeah. That alone, right? What Connor's saying is like having deals that nobody else has seen, that alone is an asset and a person that can help you with your investing journey. But I want to talk specifically about, Syracuse. We have a lot of people listening from all over the country, and some are in higher price markets like myself, like Anna, and they're looking for cash flow. A lot of people are like, hey, I want to retire my W-2. I want to get that, passive income. I'll put that in parentheses, but, they want to have that cash flow where they can retire. And I know that's what initially drew me to your market. So can we talk a little specific about your market in Syracuse for those who are listening that want to invest in cash flow markets? What is beneficial for, your market up?
Yeah. So I think upstate New York as a whole, central New York as a whole, has always been a low entry barrier to entry. So, and you can buy, and this is a decent house. And as of like a couple of years ago, you could still buy turnkey ranch, single family house for $150,000 in suburbs, phenomenal school district, and turn around and rent it out for, at least the 1% rule, if not, greater. So you likely rent it out for $1,800, $2,000, dollars a month. Now this barrier to entry is still lower compared to the national market, but it's definitely gone up. But still, you can still buy an awesome single family house or dukes for $200,000, $300,000, which in other parts of the country you really can't. And they're still cash flowing. So, if you give it your typical 3-bed 1-bath units, 2-units, duplex, and you just pick a random area in Syracuse, chances are you can probably get 1,600 or so a unit. So that's 3,200. And if you bought it for 250, I mean, that's pretty good margins. So we're still seeing that in Syracuse a lot. We're still a very good cash flowing area. It's definitely gotten harder, especially with the on-market deals. It's definitely gotten harder. But even the stuff that's being purchased on the market is following the 1%, where in other parts of the country, you don't even see the 1% rule happening anymore. So, I think there's a lot of positives. Syracuse, generally speaking and historically, doesn't see appreciation like other parts. However, with new companies coming in and a lot of big changes happening here in central New York, specifically in Onondaga County, which Syracuse is located in, we're seeing a lot of appreciation, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, and I expect it to continue to grow.
Yeah. So those who don't know what the 1% rule is, it's basically saying, hey, I'm going to purchase a property and rents are going to be at least 1% of your purchase price. So simple numbers, if you're buying a property for $100,000, the 1% rule means it's going to rent for at least $1,000. So cash flow markets, that here in the DMV, that is very hard to find unless you're getting super creative with how you're getting that income. But Connor's saying that properties over there can meet that rule. I want to touch base of what you just mentioned. You mentioned it is a cash flow market currently, but it doesn't appreciate as much as you'd like. And in an ideal world, you're getting a little bit of both, right? You're getting the cash flow and you're hoping that it's going to appreciate over time. But you mentioned a few different things are coming into Onondaga County and in Syracuse. So what can they expect for the next 10 years?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, and I honestly probably get a call every week on this, if not multiple times a week, from a different out-of-state investor or international investor, is, hey, can you tell me what's going on with Micron in Onondaga County? So Micron Technology is a chip manufacturing plant. They do like a lot with memory chips and storage. So they're bringing in a huge investment into the county in the form of building a plant. And they're probably going to invest, I think, upwards of $100 billion with a B dollars into northern Onondaga County in developing all this infrastructure and building their factory. So they're expecting to break ground at the end of this year or early next year. They just hired Gilbane Constructors to be their GC on that job. And that's the same company that's doing the Buffalo Bills Stadium right now. So they're just moving down the thruway here to Syracuse. So they're moving forward with it, and they're anticipating over the next 15 years. So by 2040, we'll see about 80,000 new residents to Onondaga County and the surrounding area. We'll see about 50,000 new jobs between Micron hiring themselves and secondary positions, with just the economy growing and the market growing. And they're anticipating, and here's the biggest part, they're anticipating needing 25,000 to 30,000 new homes and apartments in central New York as a result. So there's a lot of room for growth. You're seeing a lot of developers come from out of state and buying up golf courses and turning them into luxury kind of little communities like you'd anticipate seeing down in Florida almost. Different things like that. But there's still no way they're going to meet the demand in the time that they need it. So from that aspect, I really see the appreciation factor coming into play as well. My current portfolio consists of 9 properties, 19 units, and the ones I bought in the beginning are worth almost double what I paid for them, or my partners and I paid for them. And that was only, 3 or 4 years ago. So I anticipate that to continue, especially once Micron officially breaks ground, just can kind of foresee a flood to the market even more so than what it is currently. I mean, we need housing, we need apartments, we need places for people to live, especially we're going to see that uptick in, people coming. Upstate Medical Unit. We have a lot of hospitals. We have 3 big hospitals and then Syracuse University and Lemoyne College. So some big universities and colleges as well, which are some of our biggest employers currently. But I mean, Upstate Medical, talking about, buying up another block in the city of Syracuse and building another hospital almost. And, there's a lot of growth here. Every single road is under construction. I live on the west side of Syracuse. Our office is on the east side. It usually takes me 8 minutes, 10 minutes to get through the city downtown to my office. Now it takes me, 35, 40 minutes because every single thing is one lane and under construction. They're building the infrastructure up to get ready for an uptick in residents living here.
Welcome to the traffic in DC.
Yep.
But that's the power of like the path of progress, right? You get with somebody, an agent, or just doing your own research. You're looking for those who are doing out of state investing for cash flow, do a little bit of research so you can see what's actually going to come to the market. And, hopefully you buy. Power of real estate is you buy and you wait, right? Wait 10 years, 30 years. And that's where you really see the magic, where your net worth really grows. And if you're buying smartly, like Connor did on his first investment, and you see the appreciation in just 5 years, who knows what that'll look like in 10 and 20, 30 years if you start buying correctly. But we are running close on time, Connor, and we want to give you some space. We talked a lot about real estate, right? And we could talk about this for a whole nother hour, but outside of real estate, what are some hobbies that you like to do?
I play soccer, so I'm in 2 different men's leagues, play twice a week. So that's fun, keeps me active. And I honestly love traveling. So being an agent, an investor, it's a lot of work, but the schedule flexibility is nice. I don't have 2 weeks vacation time. I can kind of be like, oh, you know what? A couple weeks from now, I'm going to take a couple of days off to go somewhere. I'm still working, just remote. But the flexibility being in this profession is pretty nice.
I knew I liked you. I knew connected on soccer a while ago. So that's one thing. Sorry, Anna, did I cut you off?
No, I was going to ask him, what's your favorite place you've traveled to so far?
So funny enough, I know, Nick, I don't know if both of you were there, but Greece is definitely the coolest place I've ever been.
Loads.
Where in Greece did you go?
So we kind of did like a full-blown tour, almost, if you will. So we started in Crete, the island of Crete, and we took a ferry, hopped for a while, went to Mykonos. So that was pretty cool, and then ended in Athens. So I think Greece is definitely probably the coolest place I've ever been. The history that's there, the architecture, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely one of the top places I've ever been. I definitely plan on going back. So I want to shift back. So you learned a ton, and it sounds like just 5 years from when you started in real estate. What is a lesson or something that you would tell I know you're young, but your younger self looking back at 2019 to what you know now? What is some advice you would give yourself?
I think the biggest thing is definitely starting early and often, being persistent. The earlier you start, the more room you have to make mistakes, the more room you have to grow, because it is a delayed gratification game. At the end of the day, everything's going to appreciate over time, whether you're doing real estate or business. It takes time to grow and time to make mistakes. And I feel like it's a lot easier to make mistakes when you're younger. You have less responsibilities. You can bounce back and more resilient. So I definitely say start early, start often, be persistent. You don't need to know everything. Gain the knowledge that you can. Surround yourself with people that are doing it currently or are trying to do it and actually, doing it or going to do things and not just talking about it. And, you just got to start. Once you start, it gets fun and you keep going and you figure it out along the way.
Yeah. We talk about it all the time, right? Getting with people that are doing what you want to be doing. And I'm sure you probably hear this all the time. Oh, you're so lucky you started, so early in your journey. I hear that all, but it's more like, hey, you were committed, you were persistent. That's why you ended up with Joe. And now you're super involved in the investing world. And, it's a big world, but at the same time, it's a small world where you're really connecting with the genuine people that are go-givers. I think I find that on the investing side, a lot of people are willing to share their knowledge, what they've learned, because they can see it in themselves, right? Joe probably is like, okay, I want to connect with Connor because I relate to him. That was me 20, 30 years ago looking to grow.
Yeah. It's a really cool, I agree. And it's a really cool thing. Like our team right now, our youngest guy is 18 and he's licensed in Florida and New York. And, he isn't in the investment space yet, but he will be, and he will be sooner than I was in my timeline. And, our second youngest kid is 19. He handles a ton on the management side. He landed one of our biggest clients that helped us close him a 73 unit deal earlier this year. And he's invested in flips with us. And he's 19 years old. Like our team, I'm one of the old people on our team at 25 years old, which is kind of crazy. So it's pretty cool.
Cool. So we learned a ton, Connor, and I want to give you a space where if somebody had questions about, investing or just in general about your market, where could people reach out to you?
Yeah. So I'm on all social media platforms, either at Connor Schwartz or Schwartz Estates. Then our team is the Trifecta Wealth team. So on that as well, but all platforms, website, everything will be Connor Schwartz or Trifecta Wealth.
Yeah. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And then the last thing that Anna and I love to ask any guest is how can we, our audience, help you? Is there anything that you guys are looking for over there with your team?
Yeah, so a couple things potentially. So are growing rapidly, and obviously there's growing pains with that. So we're in the process of, getting better systems and software. So if you have any input or advice for that from a sales standpoint and an investment standpoint, like CRMs and that sort of thing. And then also we're always looking for more private money investors and people that want to partner on stuff, and not just on the real estate deals, but if you're interested in partnering or investing in businesses as well. We're seeing a lot of people that are, aging out of owning their business and kids don't want to take over, but real estate is still tied to that and it's good business opportunities. So we've got a lot of opportunities, different things that we'd love to talk with people about if they're interested in potentially investing.
Interesting. Any RV parks?
Maybe a mobile home park, and might have one coming up. Got a couple bar restaurants, golf course, winery, recycling company. We got some cool stuff in the pipeline. We just got to figure out how to make it work.
We'll have to connect you two, because I know Brian and Anna like to invest out of state, so we'll definitely make sure we connect that. But Connor, it's been really nice to have you on, and we'll make sure to put your info in the show notes. But that's going to do it for another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast. Please like, share, subscribe. If you found any value, connect with Connor, and you can connect with me at N Garcia Official on all social platforms. And you can reach out to Anna at
I'm Anna Byler Realtor on Instagram and Anna Byler everywhere else.
All right, guys, tune in until the next one.